Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Live from Chicago, Be'ezer Hashem, the final shir here on the road. Next year, Be'ezer Hashem in RBS and MDY headquarters. We're learning about the four different limudim. We have the Hekesh, Gzer Shava, Kavachomer, and a Binyanav. Once you learn any one of these limudim and you teach something, you learn B from A. Now you're looking at B. Can B be a teacher? So we went through most of the list. Binyanav is easy because the Gemara just puts it all in one category. So all four questions, Hekesh, Gedushav, Kavachayim, Binyanav, are question mark. So holding Kavachayim, we did one Kavachayim thing. Now we're holding, can you learn, once you learn something from a Kavachayim, can you use Gzer Shava and learn something from it afterwards? Says the Gemara, Dovar Alomed B'Kal V'Chomer, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 lines here in the bottom in my Gemara. Dovar Alomed B'Kal V'Chomer, Ma'u Shilamed B'Kal V'Chomer. Here we're holding with the Kal V'Chomer row. We're trying to do this row right over here. We did this yesterday. Can a Kal V'Chomer, can you learn, once you learn Kal V'Chomer, can you learn another Kal V'Chomer? The Gemara says yes. So let's see why. Says Gemara, I'll answer you with a Kal V'Chomer. With a Kal V'Chomer, I can figure it out. A Gzer Shava that's learned out of a Hekesh cannot teach, but a Kal V'Chomer that's learned out from a Hekesh. So a Kal V'Chomer is stronger than a Gzer Shava. How do I know that? Because a Gzer Shava that's learned from a Hekesh cannot teach. But a Kavachomer that's learned from Hekesh could teach. So Kavachomer is stronger. And therefore, Kavachomer, Halomed Mehekesh, and it didn't Shilam Kavachomer. So Kavachomer should certainly be able to teach if you learned it from a Kavachomer. V'zeu Kavachomer ben Kavachomer. So this is perfect. Look at this. This is the son. This is a Kavachomer, the son of a Kavachomer. Meaning, how did we get to step number one? We only got to step number one through a Kavachomer. We had to create a Kavachomer, we got to step number one. What's step number one? That you could use a Kavachomer after Gzer Shava. And then, how do we get to step number two? Through a Kavachomer. Kavachomer is stronger than Gzer Shava, so certainly you can learn a Kavachomer from a Kavachomer. So we had to make two Kavachomers in order to get to where we got to. That what? You can learn a Kavachomer from a Kavachomer. So that's a grandchild of a Kavachomer. In other words, you had to use two Kavachomers. Who says that's okay? You know it's not okay? To use three Kavachomers. Hello, sorry. Ask the Gemara, Ben Benoisha Kavachomer who? In fact, it's three. Take a look. You have the 1 and 2, which we just said. In order to understand that a Kavachomer that comes after Gzer Shava you could use, we had to use a Kavachomer. In order to say that a Kavachomer that comes after a Kavachomer, we had to use a Kavachomer. But what are you going to do with it? Now that you have that, you're going to use this Kavachomer and teach me something real. Until now, we're learning, could a Kavachomer that comes from a Kavachomer teach? Okay, now that I know that it could teach, now you're going to teach me something from a Kavachomer. That's Kavachomer number 3. That's too much. That's the grandchild. There's a father, there's a son, there's a grandchild. There's 3. Hello. So you know what? Says Gemara, if I take off number 1, let's get rid of number 1. I'll only have 2 and 3. So that's 2. That's okay. 3 is not okay. 2 is okay. In other words, number 1 before was that I know that a Kavachomer that comes after Gzer Shava, the only way I know it is through a Kavachomer. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm not going to go through that limud. So what do I have? 2 and 3. Let's see the Gemara. Oh, I'm cheating. I'm going away from Gzer Shava because that's the only way I could get to there is through a Kavachomer, and I don't want 3 Kavachomers. So I'm going to say something else. A Hekesh that doesn't teach Hekesh. We all know that. That's rule number 1. Hekesh cannot teach a Hekesh in Kachim. Even the Rav, even the Ravina. Milamed b'Kavachomer, yet it could teach from a Kavachomer, Midatara the Rabbi Shmuel. Kavachomer, I love a Hekesh, but a Kavachomer that you could learn from a Hekesh. So in other words, Kavachomer is stronger than a Hekesh. And it did Shilam a Kavachomer. And it is Shilam a Kavachomer. Certainly a Kavachomer can teach a Kavachomer because the Kavachomer is stronger than a Hekesh. So we're going away from the Gzer Shabbat. And Memela will only have 2 and 3, and that's okay. 2 Kavachomers is fine. Vizel Kavachomer ben Kavachomer. That's not a grandchild, that's a son of a Kavachomer. Next, the final thing on the list of Kavachomer would be a Binyanav here. In the Kavachomer list, right over here, Kavachomer list, we're going to go all the way to the end, right over here. Once you have a Kavachomer, could you learn a Binyanav? And the answer is, I don't know, question mark. I'll tell you. If you did Malika, you poked your finger right through the neck of the bird, and you found out that this bird is a treifa. Now, what's the difference between a nevela and a treifa? A nevela is an animal that drops dead. That creates tumah. Now, if it's an animal like a cow, a goat, a sheep, and it drops dead, it had a heart attack and died, and you touch it, you become tummy. If it's a pigeon, a kosher bird, that drops dead and you touch it, you don't become tummy. When do you become tummy? If you swallow it. You eat it and you swallow it. That's called matama beis habliya. Now, we're going to have a discussion if the kohen shechts it. I don't want to say shecht. If the kohen does malika with his finger in the Beis Hamikdash, does that remove the tumah? Because treifa means, that's nevela. Treifa means an animal has a mulam that's going to cause it to die within a year. Let's say a hole in its heart. And you go ahead and you shecht an animal before it dies, even though it has a hole in the heart, it does not create tumah. If you touch the dead carcass, if you make a steak, do you become tumah? It's from a dead animal. No. Why? Because you shechted that animal and it doesn't have tumah anymore. Even if it has a hole in the heart, it's not matama. So Mela, let's take a look over here at Yoshi's thing. I have a bird. I think this is what he was trying to do. Bird's flying. And an arrow punctures its, or whatever it is, punctures its, what is that, the liver? Heart? I don't know what. It becomes a treifa, and then you shecht it. It's not matama. Now let me show you a beis habliya real quickly. Roadkill. I love that AI car. They just took a right turn, went over the lawn, drove away. Put it inside, now it's outside. Givaldic. Take a look what happens. If you eat the chicken, once you swallow it, you become red and tamei. So says the Gemara. If you did Melika and it's a treifa, the Melika saves you from Tumah. Rabbi Yehuda says Melika does not save you from Tumah. So now I'm going to do a Kavachomer and then a Memetzino. Then what? Kavachomer. So what's more severe in the Tumah? An animal or a bird? An animal. Why? Because an animal, if you touch, you become tummy. A bird, if you touch it, you don't become tummy. So an animal is more severe. Shchita is mitaheres, trifas tumah. Yet if you shecht an animal, it removes the shchita, the tumah nivlasoif. So if you have a bird, a bird which is less severe, if you touch it, you don't become tamei. And it didn't shchita is mitaheres trifas. So step number one is that shchita should definitely be mitar a bird when it's treif from its tumah. Now when I got to that step, that what? That shchita with a knife removes the tumah, even if the bird had a hole in the heart, like we just saw in the video, a hole went through, arrow went right through the heart. It's not tummy. Now we're going to go to a memetzino. Memetzino means, just like we found it by shchita, it removes the tumah. So too by melika, it removes the tumah, says Remeir. Memetzino b'shchita shemachsharta b'achila b'taheres shvifas b'tumasa. Af melika shemachsharta b'achila b'taheres shvifas b'tumasa. So to melika it should also work. So here you have a mematzinu that comes after kal v'chomer, and it works. Says the Gemara, and hold on. And Rabbi Yossi Yomer, and finally a third shita, Daya kinivlas be'ematayra. Daya, don't go too much on this limud. It's enough to say that it should be exactly like an avela of an animal that's tar. By an animal, shchita works and not malika. So too by a bird. So he said, we have three shitas. Either shchita and malika work by a bird, or it doesn't work by a bird, or shchita works by a bird and malika not. So the Gemara is not a raya that you can do a mematzino after kavachomer. V'loi yosem tehevi he. First of all, v'loi. So step number one is Remeir never said that it's a mematzino. He spoke about a hekesh. There's a hekesh to teach me that a bird, if you do malika on a bird that's treif, it's not mitama. But the second thing is Hazim tehevi he mishchito the chulin kasya. We said yesterday we're trying to find, could you say a mematzino after a kavachomer in kachim, not in chulin, in kachim, in korbanas? What do you bring me a raya from a bird that's tummy, that's not kachim? Next, and this is the end of the sugya. Unfortunately, I hate to see the sugya go. Davar alam bebinyan bebinyanav maushi lamed behekesh u'gizer shava u'bekavachomer u'bebinyanav. We are finally down to the final row, right over here. Oops, my laser went away. Okay. We're on this row, the Binyanav row. And we want to know, could you learn a Hekesh from a Binyanav? Can you learn a Xerish from a Binyanav, Kalchayim from a Binyanav, and a Binyanav from a Binyanav? Well, this whole thing. And the answer is, I don't know. But the Gemara says, I'm going to try one out of the four. Maybe one, I can tell you. How come if the blood that was left overnight and you put it on the mizbech, it's not kosher to put on, but if you put it on the mizbech by mistake, im alula yerdu, the famous song im alula yered, with sunglasses. The answer is shari lam be'imurim kosher. It's a mamatzinu. Like I found that if you put the imurim on the mizbech by mistake after it was left overnight, do not remove it, kosher. Lam be'imurim kosher. And how do I know that? Shari lam be'basar kosher, because shlamim, basar over here means shlamim. Shlamim is left overnight is kosher. So it's a mamatzino after mamatzino. So Gemara says, maybe I could, this box in the bottom left corner, maybe, which is a binyanav, after I learned the binyanav, right? It was two things that we just learned. I know blood from emurim, and I know emurim from shlamim. And then Gemara continues, Yoitze, what if meat goes outside of Beis HaMikdash, you put it on the mizbech, you don't have to take it off, because you see the concept of meat outside of the Beis HaMikdash by a bama. Tamei, if the meat is tamei and it went onto the mizbech, you don't have to take it off, because it's allowed for the tzibur. Chutz zmano, if you had a thought of eating it after it's a lot of time and you put it on the mizbech, lo yered. Because the actual avoid over there, you need that avoid in order to make it pigul. You have meat that he had a thought that he's going to eat it outside of the Yerushalayim or whatever it is. The reason why you don't take it off the mizbech is because it's similar to chutzazman. Or you have somebody who's puzzle who sprinkled the blood. You have kohanim that are tamei. Fine, that's what we're talking about. Asking Gemara, you're learning from shlamim. You're learning blood from emurim and emurim from shlamim. Asking Gemara, wait a minute. How are we learning from shlamim? How can you learn something that's puzzle from something that's shlamim that's kosher? Says Gemara, you're right. Tana mezois Torah zois Torahs ha'olah. It's 3 limudim from this one pasuk. So I have an extra pasuk that teaches us these 3 things. Riba samach lei. Brand new sugi Rabbi Isai. It says in the Gemara, it says in the Mishnah, that when you have leftover blood, what do you do with it? You pour it right there on the side. Says Gemara, how do I know this? You put it on the but not on the side. on the western part of the Yisod. Why western part? My time El Yisod Mizbach Ha'olah Asher Pesach Oil Moed. As you come out of the Oil Moed, as you come out of the Heichal, the first thing you bump in, Ahud the Paga Bereisha. That's what you should. So let's take a look. What are you bumping into when you come out of the Heichal? Actually, I don't know if this is good. No, this is not so good. No, not this one. Sorry, that's coming from outside. Here's the Heichal, the overview of the Heichal, the bird's eye view. So when this human being, this kohen, comes outside of the Heichal, what does he bump into? The Mizbeach. So you should put it right there. It's a little bit far. Because the Mizbeach is pushed off. That's why you had to make a right turn. Those holes over there, that's when you come out of the Heichal, that's what you bump into first. It's ein mavirim ala mitzvahs. You shouldn't, when you have a mitzvah in front of you, you don't pass it off. You don't pass it by, pass it over. You don't pass it over. It says this pasuk in different ways, basically, a number of times. El Yisoid Mizbach Ha'olah. This one is by Ariel Davar. Sorry, the Par Kohen Gadol. El Yisoid Mizbach Ha'olah. So what do you learn from this? V'lo Yisoid Mizbach Ha'pnimi. You should pour the blood on the foundation, on the Yisoid of the Mizbeach Hachitzayin, and not the Mizbeach Ha'pnimi, not the golden Mizbeach Hazav inside the Heichal. Another pasuk that says by Ariel Davar. Third pasuk. Ein lo Yisoid L'pnimi Atzmoi. The inner Mizbeach does not have a Yisoid. Let's see what we got here from our artist. This is the Mizbeach Hapnimi. It doesn't have a foundation, you see? Oh. Beautiful. You see the Shulchan on the right, the Menorah on the left. I just didn't know why. Right over here, you could see the paroiches through the Menorah. I don't know. Pshat. Okay. El Yisoid Mizbach Ha'olah. Finally, it says El Yisoid Mizbach Ha'olah by the Nasi. Tein Yisoid LeMizbeach Shaloila. So if you were to read it, it would mean you should put a foundation on the Mizbeach Ha'olah. No, that's not the pshat. You should pour all bloods, any leftover blood, pour it on the Mizbeach Ha'olah. Maybe it means that you should put a foundation there. That the zrika should be by the foundation, not, in other words, not by the southern part of the Mizbeach that doesn't have a foundation. Shiraim do not create forgiveness, kapara, but you have to pour it by the Yisoid. So certainly, the beginning part of the carbon you should put by the Yisoid. Oh, so we have a kavachomer. Yeah, we said this already. Rabbi Kiva says, same thing, yeah? Shiraim do not create a forgiveness, and they're not coming to forgive. Yet, you have to put it on the foundation of the Mizbeach. So, oila that comes to forgive, and it's there for forgiveness. It creates a forgiveness. Certainly, it should require the foundation to pour by the foundation. Why do you need the pasuk? That all karbanos that have leftover blood, you should pour by the yisoid. Omar Mar, El Yisoid Mizbach, V'lo Yisoid Mizbeach Hapnimi. And there's no foundation to the inner Mizbeach. As the Gemara Meboyle Legufei. Wait a minute, what does that mean? maybe who told you to exclude the inner mizbeach? Maybe it's in addition to the inner mizbeach. The inner mizbeach, for sure, you could pour the blood. It's the inner mizbeach. It's more choshev. It's in the heichal. Maybe it means that you could also pour it in the outer mizbeach, but certainly in the inner mizbeach. Who told you to get rid of the inner mizbeach? So the Gemara, you're right. Good kasha. Masher pesach oil moyed nafka. I have a pasuk that tells me that you shouldn't pour it in the inner mizbeach. You should pour it in the outer mizbeach. El yisoid mizbach oil. Here's my yisoid mizbeach shaloyla. This akadayach kiduchsiv. If you're going to say that this pasuk is only coming for the nasi himself, hanei lama likra, the shirayim. You need a pasuk for that. You should pour the leftover blood. Shirayim or baroya avelu. All the sprinkling of the blood is outside. So of course you pour the rest, the leftover outside, not inside the heichal. Maybe you should flip things around. The baroy legavoy, the gavoy lebroy. The nasi is carbon that you worship it. You do the avoid in the heichal. So maybe you should pour the blood outside, and the blood that you pour outside should go into the inside. It's impossible to pour blood inside. Why? Because it doesn't have a foundation that the mizbech apnimi, like we saw. Rabboisai, have a wonderful day. I'll see you, Be'ez Hashem, in Eretz Yisrael.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.